I've been sickly my whole life. Growing up with an alcoholic father and ill mother took its toll on me. I've lived with chronic mystery illness for over 25 years now. At my lowest points, I was bedridden, so fatigued that I was unable to fold a single load of laundry in one sitting, and so dizzy that I couldn't make it to the toilet unassisted. I've endured panic attacks where I felt like I was going to die, where I was on my knees in prayer, asking for deliverance one way or another. This was some of what I experienced in my darkest days. My first major health episode happened at the age of 18. I went to countless doctors and specialists and had numerous tests run. But no matter how many physicians I saw or how many tests they did, the outcome was always the same. They could never find anything wrong with me. This eventually led me to being labeled a hypochondriac by medical professionals. Because of my experiences, I knew there were no answers or hope to be found for me within allopathic medicine. Luckily, my grandpa was a naturalist and a vegan, so the idea that health could be found outside of traditional medicine was something I'd at least heard of. Over the years, as my symptoms persisted, and I finally got tired enough of being sick to do something about it, I looked into alternative health to see if it could maybe help me, and to my surprise, it did. I had lived with almost daily headaches and dizziness for 10 years. After looking at my symptoms using Dr. Google, I saw heavy metal exposure listed as a potential cause. I started thinking about potential heavy metal exposures in my life. My husband mentioned that antiperspirants contained aluminum, a toxic heavy metal. I stopped using my antiperspirant, and within days, the headaches and dizziness that had plagued me for a decade were gone. I had similar success with another of my symptoms, seasonal allergies. I'd had hay fever since childhood, but after I gave birth to my first daughter, my allergies became severe. I read online that people had found relief from allergies by cutting gluten and dairy from their diet, so I tried it. Come that spring, it was like I'd never had allergies a day in my life. I had been gluten-free and vegan for a few years before I experienced my next health episode, the episode I call the big one. It was during this episode that I experienced my worst symptoms and reached the lowest point in my health journey thus far. At this point in my life, I started eating meat and dairy again, thinking veganism might be the reason for my illness. Over the next 4 years, I would try many different alternative diets, procedures, and screenings in my search for a cure. I tried everything from paleo to raw vegan diets, acupuncture, and testing for gene mutations. Nothing really helped. A mental health therapist I was seeing at the time told me about how she'd cured her cancer naturally. She said she used something called the medical medium. She had pictures of all his book covers in her office waiting room, each book cover showcasing a different fruit or vegetable. I'd researched so much about rare and mystery diseases at this point, I probably knew more than most doctors. When she told me about the medical medium, I remember thinking to myself, yeah, right, I've studied all this complex scientific information on the body and disease, and some psychic is going to cure me with vegetables. Having tried so much already without the results I was looking for, the idea sounded ludicrous to me. A few months went by, and this medical medium person came up again somewhere else. I'd tried what seemed like about everything, so I thought I might as well look into it. I wasn't really expecting that it would help, but I had nothing to lose, so I checked out one of his books from my local library. What I read in that book was different than anything I'd ever heard before, and what I read made so much sense. I felt like I finally had answers as to why I was so sick, and with that knowledge of the cause, would be able to cure myself. I began applying his information, and for the first time in my life was 100% symptom-free. With just a few minor changes, my hypoglycemia, endometriosis, and reoccurring dizziness and headaches vanished. I felt the best I had in my whole life. I felt so good, in fact, that I decided it was time to work on my happiness. When you're chronically ill, you don't have energy to spare. You're lucky to get the things you need to get done on the average day. I've never been happier at peace in my life. And with my body feeling strong, I decided to embark on 2 years of heavy trauma work. I'd heard the medical mediums say that adrenaline from stress was a trigger for illness, but I thought, I'm feeling fine, I'll be okay. Nothing could have been further from the truth. At the end of 2 straight years of facing my greatest fears, of going into my own underworld to face and slay the demons there, I found myself sick again. This would be the 3rd major health episode I'd experienced. I began looking back over my life and what was occurring during the times that I had major episodes to see if there was a pattern I could find. The common thread between my times of major flares was stress. Periods in my life where I was experiencing things that were fear-producing. Most people feel fear and retreat. I had a history, a bad habit of feeling fear, but always pushing through it because I hated being limited in my life. It was my fucking life, and I was determined to live it. As my grandma would have said, come hell or high water. The onset of this latest episode began in January of 2024. I am still recovering. As I work on rebuilding my body, I am learning how to pay close attention to it. Something that with a history of dissociation has not been a fast, easy, or natural process. As I practice being embodied by paying attention to how my body reacts to things, I am learning just how big of a trigger stress is for my symptoms. I'm learning how to respect my body and treat it well. I'm learning the folly in going against my body and trying to impose my will over it. I'm not happy that I can't have things my way. I grumble and am upset that I am stuck in this broken body. My spirit longs to be free, to be able to experience any and everything it desires while being incarnate. I'm learning how to balance the needs of my spirit with those of my body. It's not a fun process, but one I'm undertaking for my kids, in the hopes that they can have their mom here on this earth for as long as possible.